The Luring Tree, Chapter 13. Spring. Birds darting about, singing in the trees and over the prairies, over hasty flowers popping up from the damp earth. And only 2 more weeks to school. Things had got back pretty much to normal for the Wingers. Sarah was at the Kavanaughs again, working hard as ever, and Prissy helped her on Saturdays with the heavy cleaning. Jack was busy in the fields, and every so often he drove a steamroller for the county. Pete rode the herd for Jack Kiner Monday through Friday, and every day after school Newt joined Beansy, Earl, Jappy, and Skunk in the ritual of testing the water at the swimming hole. On the first Saturday morning in June, Newt went over to the Kiner farm looking for work. He met Jake at the barn door and said humbly, "Mornin', Mr. Kiner." "Mornin', Newt." Jake pushed his spectacles to the end of his bony red nose. "No peaches yet, you young scallywag. What do you want?" Newt grinned and said, "Want some extra work this summer." Jake grunted. "Extra, huh? None of you young'uns wants anything steady." "Got to get my swimming in, you know that. You was young once." "I ain't too happy about it, though. Wasted a lot of time, like you're doing right now. You ought to be a good hand like your brother, 'stead of cavorting all over the place, swimming and stealing peaches and such." "Oh, them days are over for me, Mr. Kiner. I got to make money for college. Only got 3 more years." "Sounds good. Probably a lot of hot air, though." "No, sir. I'm going for sure. Ask Mama." "Well, what do you want to do, 'sides sleep and eat?" "Oh, some hoeing and feeding and helping anywhere. Maybe riding with Pete when he'll let me." "Just a minute." Jake pushed open the barn door and hollered. "The harvesting man bring the plowshares yet, Silas?" "Said he'd be out this afternoon around 3," Silas called back. "Mr. Newhall working for you this spring?" Newt asked. "Well, I'm trying him. Don't know how he's going to work out. Quite a boozer." Jake studied Newt for a moment. "Okay, young fellow, you come around next Saturday. See if I can't put you to doing something." "Thanks, Mr. Kiner, thanks. School'll be out next Friday, so that'll be just fine. I'll be here bright and early." On the last day of school Mr. Hall called Newt into his office. "Newton," he said, "I want to congratulate you on your final marks, and especially on the good report Miss McClintock turned in." Newt had been nervous when he entered, but now he beamed brightly. "Thanks, Mr. Hall. I tried hard." "Your report card shows you did. See you next fall. Have a good summer." They shook hands, then Newt made a special trip down the hall to say goodbye to Miss McClintock. She smiled stiffly and told Newt she appreciated his coming to her, and he felt good as he walked out of the door toward the summer and vacation. He joined Beansy, Jappy, and Earl on the steps, and they all started across town comparing marks. As they reached the tracks they met Skunk. "How'd you get over here so early?" Beansy asked. "Got a new babe with a big car," Skunk lied. "You ought to see her. She's got hair down to her ankles, and a keister that would make the old Reverend Broadnap throw his Bible in a privy hole." They all laughed and continued across the track. The rest of the afternoon they wandered aimlessly over Candy Hill and along the road leading to Rock Cave and the river, happy in the freedom of the summer that lay ahead. When Newt entered the house that evening, Prissy handed him a letter, and his heart jumped. It might be from Marcella, he thought. He tore it open and began reading. "Who's it from?" Prissy asked, peeping over his shoulder. Newt kept reading. A big grin came to his face. "Hot dog," he shouted. Prissy was beside herself with curiosity. "What's it say? Who's it from?" "Professor Radiker invites you to participate in the special science seminar he will conduct for a week this summer," it says. "Wait till I tell Mama. Won't Rodney Kavanagh be surprised? He'll be going too." "Huh. You think you're something great," Prissy said. "It's a big honor, because he only invites the 10 best students every year. They go on field trips and everything." He danced about the room, waving the letter. His summer was shaping up. The next day Newt went to work on the Kiner farm, and Silas Newhall was 4 hours late. Jake stormed about the place, damning himself for giving Silas a chance. "Should have known better than to trust that lickerhead." "Anything I can do, Mr. Kiner?" Newt asked. "Nah, you just keep cleaning up that tap," Jake snapped. Pulling out a bunch of keys, he unlocked a door near the barn entrance. He went in, and a short time later shouted, "Come here, boy." Newt dropped the saddle and reins and went over to the door and found Jake stacking bottles on his shelf. He climbed atop a box and motioned to Newt. "Hand me them bottles out of that tub there," he said. Newt began handing them up as Jake placed them on a higher shelf. "Look out!" Jake shouted as one of the bottles toppled from the shelf and broke on the floor. "Hit you?" "Nope," said Newt. "Kind of good peach brandy gone," Jack mumbled. "Okay, keep shoving up." Newt kicked the broken glass to the side and began handing Jake the bottles again. He was just picking up the last two when Silas staggered into the barn and came over to the brandy closet. "Mornin', mornin'," he mumbled. "Oh, look at all the hooch. No wonder you keep that big old lock on that there door, Jake," he added groggily. Jake put the last two bottles and climbed down. A mixture of anger and disgust was on his face as he stood regarding Silas. "What do you mean, mornin'?" he growled finally. "It's past 12, and you're soused to the gills." Silas giggled. "Just a little spirits, that's all. A little spirits." He wobbled closer, and Newt caught the reek of liquor that seemed to come from his clothes. Jake reached into his pocket, pulled out some money, sorted several bills, and shoved them into Silas's hand. "Here, you're fired. Now get off my property." "Now wait a minute, Jake. You can't do this to me." "Get out, I say." Jake started shoving him toward the door. Okay. Silas stopped and counted the money. "Listen here, this ain't enough. This is a day short." He stood rocking in the middle of the floor. "That's all you're getting. You ain't getting a cent coming for today." Jake said, "Not a cent. Now out you go." Jake pushed him on through the door and into the open. The door banged shut behind them. Newt went over and started cleaning the tack again. He could hear the two men outside screaming at each other. "You owe me another day, you old bastard. I want the money what's coming to me." "Go on, get out. Get out." A few minutes later Newt went outside for lunch, and he could see Silas, far across the field, stumbling toward the village. Poor Waldo, he thought. What a guy to have for a father. He took a paper sack from his overall bib, unwrapped a ham sandwich, and began eating. After a while Jake came out with a cup of milk. "Something to wash it down with," he said, and then he walked back to the house. Later that evening, at the Winger supper table, Newt remarked about Silas being fired. "Jake was plenty mad, too," he said. "He just shoved money at Silas and told him to get going." "Silas drunk?" Pete asked. "He sure was. Couldn't hardly stand up." "Shame," Sarah said. "I feel so bad for Waldo. He's such a nice boy at heart." "Can't say the same for Blanche, though," Jack put in. "Well, Silas sure ain't no great pattern for either one of them to go by," Sarah retorted. A knock came on the screen door. "Newt, can you go?" "Miss Beansy and Skunk." "Just a minute," Newt answered, and looked at Sarah. "Mama, you care if I go to the early show with Beansy and Skunk?" "As long as you get home before 9, it's all right. No later." "Yes'm." Jumping up from the table, he grabbed his cap and joined his friends. On their way to Regency Theater, they passed Chappie Logan's place, and Newt spied Silas Newhall coming out the door. He was still drunk, leaning on the arm of Booker Savage. Newt tried to hurry past without being seen, but he wasn't fast enough. "Hey, boy," Silas hollered. "You tell that old goat Jake I'm coming for my money. You tell him now, you hear?" "Yeah," Newt answered, still moving. "And tell him he better put one more lock on that booze he's hiding in that barn, too. You tell him, you hear?" Yeah," Newt repeated. As the boys went down the block, Skunk quipped, "Them two are ass ends of nothing." "What's Silas talking about, Newt?" Beansy asked. "Jake Kiner fired him today for being late and drunk." "Surprised me when he hired him in the first place," Skunk said. "I wouldn't trust him behind a mosquito specker." They walked onto the tracks where a freight train stood, blocking their path. "Come on, let's go over the top," Skunk urged, "else we'll be late for the show." He jumped on the bottom step and began scaling the metal rings of the boxcar. Newt and Beansy hesitated for a moment, then followed. They just reached the top of the car when the brakeman spied them. "Get off there, you bastards!" he shouted. "Screw you, red balls!" Skunk hollered back. They scurried down the other side, leaped to the ground, and made off toward the Regency.